im se svima, i malima i velikima, i bogatima i siromašnima, i slobodnjacima i robovima, dade žig na njihovu desnu ruku ili na čela njihova, te da nitko ne može ništa kupiti ili prodati, osim onoga ko ima žig ili ime zvijeri ili broj imena njezina.
Pozdrav, dragi narode, dobrodošli u još jednu epizodu Slobodni. Današnja tema su ljudi koji ne postoje, odnosno navodno ne postoje, odnosno države negiraju da postoje. Sve one države, čak i one zapadne, razvijenije, sada kažu da ono što oni prijavljuju kao nuspojava cjepiva nisu nuspojava cjepiva, nego si mnogi samo umišljaju. Međutim, naravno to su stvarni ljudi koji su, kako bi mnogi nazvali, antivakseri, a u stvarnosti nikad ne bi bili u ovoj situaciji da su uistinu bili antivakseri. Dakle, primili su cjepivo i od toga su stradali. Odlučio sam da im dam glas i vas da upoznam sa njima, iako ne dolaze iz Hrvatske, ali dolaze iz cijelog svijeta i svi znamo da smo bili u istoj situaciji 2020. nadalje. Ima gospođa, naravno, koja je odlučila da se pobrine za njih i osnovala je svoju organizaciju i danas ćemo čuti i nekoliko riječi o njoj. I ona je moja današnja gošća, kao i njeni gosti koji će govoriti svoja svjedočanstva. Njeno ime je Fiona Rose Diamond. Hello, Fiona. Welcome to our show in Croatia.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for your time and for your friends who will be together with us today. Can you say a few words about your activity, your background, and your organization?
So, I mean, as you know, because you've been to London and covered one of my rallies, I've been campaigning for over 5 years now. So when we were locked down in 2020, I campaigned against the mandates, against the jab rollout, against the lockdown restrictions. I've campaigned for over 5 years and I've been arrested, charged and convicted for breaking the emergency legislation in the UK. I campaigned a lot about the toxic injectables, the COVID jabs, and I tried to stop people from taking them. We campaigned about informed consent, of which there was none. So I went to mass vaccination centres where they were giving 15,000 doses of these jabs to 18-year-olds and up, tried to save lives. And 2.5 years ago, I started a movement and campaign called Truth Be Told, which was to give a voice to those who had been injured and bereaved due to the COVID injectables, and also to change the public perception because everybody was being silenced, gaslit and censored. So even those who took this injectable were called anti-vax conspiracy theorists, even though they were injured or bereaved having taken the jab. So I've been working with them for 2.5 years, and we seek truth and justice and accountability.
Just last week, I had an interview with Nikki Wiles, and he also made one great documentary, Follow the Silenced. It's about same people who face the same experience in the United States.
Yes, there is an amazing film called Safe and Effective, A Second Opinion by Oracle Films, which was released in September 2022. But the Nikki Wiles film obviously featured a lady called Brianne Dressen, who founded React 19, which again is a campaign for the COVID jab, injured and bereaved. And she has been a powerhouse in America. She supported our campaign in January of 2023. And they do amazing work. And people have to keep talking and break the silence because there is still so much censorship and gaslighting and silence around these COVID jabs. They are trying to bury the truth with the dead.
Yes, and that's why it's my special pleasure today to give them chance to say their experience. And you brought them with you. Can you present our first guest of yours?
So the first guest you'll be speaking to is Alex Kelly. Her mother was killed by the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID jab 4 days after one dose. She's had it inquest and coroner confirmed. So it's been confirmed on her death certificate that the COVID jab caused her mother's death. And since then, Alex Kelly has been fighting for justice for others in setting up CVIB Legal Fund, which is a legal fund for those who can't really afford the legal representation to prove causation and to fight for justice and for, the measly compensation that the government offer. So Alex Kelly is an amazing woman. She's bereaved herself and she's fighting for others.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm actually at work on my break, so I'm doing this without hopefully any interruptions. But I appreciate you allowing me to speak. So my mum, Anthea Kelly, or Annie Kelly, she likes to be called Annie. She was given the AstraZeneca cocktail, I will call it. I certainly wouldn't call it a vaccine. She was given it in January 2021, and within 4 days, she was dead. My brother and I found her on the floor, gone within 4 days. And for me, this is murder. It's not an unfortunate medical case. It's not a one in however many people. It's too many people. She was one of too many people. We still have yet to see the outcome of these horrendous jabs. Pfizer and Moderna are just as awful. They are wreaking havoc, causing deaths, causing injuries. We've got turbo cancers. We've got everything. We've got every kind of injury and every kind of death going on. For my family, with mum's death from AstraZeneca, or murder by AstraZeneca, should I say, we ended up setting up a legal fund called CVIB Legal Fund, which we're into our second year now. We've probably funded and helped about 50 cases, 50. The amazing Peter Todd, who is a vaccine specialist solicitor, a medical solicitor in the UK, he took on my mum's case because we had causation. We had it from the start. So the coroner had put it on the death certificate. The pathologist was very clear. AstraZeneca killed her. And we couldn't go any further with the coroner. She wouldn't hold an inquest, even though she had put it on the death certificate. So we instructed Mr. Todd. He took on mum's case, and in the end we did get the inquest, and it's thanks to the pathologist. He was amazing. He stood up to the coroner and he was like, this killed her. This was fatal for her. And his words, which I've said many, many times, but it just never leaves you. And it's never left me, was that she would be here today had she not been given the AstraZeneca vaccine. Oh, I hate that word, but yeah, those were his words. So he was adamant as to what had done it. Yes, my mum was 71. Yes, she had health issues. Who doesn't? But we've got deaths and injuries. It's just a tidal wave. And nobody wants to talk about it. It's like old news. Everyone's gone quiet about it. But the vaccine injured and bereaved, sadly, we're just a growing number because people are starting to put two and two together. My loved one died, or my loved one became injured, or this person was never the same after the booster. And you can't speak to medical professionals because they just don't want to know. You eat something at lunchtime and you go into the hospital that evening because you're violently sick. They would ask you, what did you have that day? What medicines are you on? What did you eat? But with this, it's like as soon as you say, well, things started to happen after I had this jab, or my loved one had this jab, they don't want to know. So at CVIB, we decided, as I say, my family and I, to set this up because of the absolute minefield that medical law is. And Peter Todd is the solicitor for the fund. We deal with the fundraising, but we send cases to him. And we wanted to do this in memory of my mum because she was a nurse. She herself was very questionable about what was going on with this rollout. But I think just sheer exhaustion and pressure, and she was a very strong woman, but she was very tired at the end of her life. I ended up taking her to the appointment, which will live with me for the rest of my life. But, in her memory, we want to fight and make sure that people who are just left to rot, because that's what's going on. People are just like, nobody wants to know. The world just wants to move on, but we're going to continue to fight. And so, as I say, we're into our second year and we're about 50 cases now that have been funded. And in all honesty, We genuinely thought we may do a handful of cases. We might be able to just help a few people. But the support has been phenomenal. It's anything from challenging a coroner to challenging medical professionals, VDPS rejections. We had a case of a 17-year-old, 17, who died after, I believe it was the Pfizer injection. And the coroner's like, no, it's nothing to do with the vaccine. It's got nothing to do with it. So we had to fight that. In the end, the coroner would not budge. So the family took as much as they could sort of comfort from the outcome, that they had done everything they could. But that's what our fund is doing. That's what the legal fund is doing. And so many vaccine injured and bereaved and people like Fiona with the Truth Be Told campaign we're carrying on, because this hasn't gone anywhere. As I say, people want to bury their heads in the sand. They don't want to know about it anymore. It was last year's news. It was 2 years ago. It was 3 years ago. Oh, move on. It's like, well, you know what? It's in the majority of people's system. So who knows the outcome yet? Why have cancer rates gone up? You should be really worried if you had one of these. And anybody going for boosters right now, just stop. For crying out loud, just stop. How anyone is still standing, I don't know. But that's what we're doing at CVIB. And I am a massive supporter. Well, I am a member of Truth Be Told and just love the work that Fiona does. And we will continue to do it at the Truth Be Told campaign. But yeah, if anybody wants to donate or become a patron, you can do so with £1. And we're most grateful, because we're not stopping. The worst has happened to me personally. I have nothing left to lose. So I'm going to carry on. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. And I hope to speak to you again. Take care.
Fiona, who is our next guest?
Our next guest, you'll be speaking to A.D. Walker. A.D. was in his 40s, fit, healthy, a marathon runner. He took 1 dose of the Oxford AstraZeneca, and he is now permanently disabled. He was diagnosed with vaccine-induced thrombotic thrombocytopenia, and he's been left permanently disabled, life changed forever. His wife is now his carer, but again, he fights for justice for all.
Hello, Andy. Can you please share with us your story during the pandemic and also, of course, your vaccine injury?
So my name's A.D. Walker from Wrantham in Lincolnshire in England. I was previously very, very fit and healthy, sub 4-hour marathon runner, a former semi-professional football referee, a self-employed taxi driver. In the UK here, the country locked down with COVID. My work virtually stopped overnight. I wasn't making any money. I was worried how I'm going to pay my bills. Then the so-called miracle vaccines came along. We was all encouraged to take them. Here in the UK, it was on the TV, in the newspapers, every day. All we heard was, do the right thing, save lives. And I wasn't worried about the COVID itself. It was more a case of I was concerned about how am I going to make a living. I was concerned that I may need a vaccine for my work because I was transporting children to and from school. So on the 16th of February, I went and rolled up my sleeve along with a lot of my work colleagues and had the AstraZeneca COVID vaccine. They told me, expect to feel cold, flu-like symptoms, but other than that, you will be fine. I said, okay. I left that day, felt okay, then developed the cold and flu-like symptoms, but nothing more of it. They continued, gradually got worse. 10 days later, I was having dizzy spells. I put it down to not eating and drinking much that day. Never thought much of it. And then 12 days after I'd had the vaccine, I had to crawl up and down the stairs. I couldn't even walk up them. I was that weak. My wife said, you'll need to have a COVID test, which was one of the things they made us do in the UK. I said, I had no symptoms, no point in me going for a test. But she said, if you go to the doctors, that's the first thing they will send you for. So I went for a test. Next morning, that came back negative. I went to my doctors. Well, I rang my doctor, sorry. They told me immediately to go to hospital. I was then transferred from my local hospital, Grantham, in an ambulance to Lincoln Hospital, which is the biggest hospital in my area, where scans showed multiple blood clots in my lungs, my bowel, my portal vein, my mesocentric vein. And little did I know at this time that I was in a life-threatening condition. My what's called platelets, which normally should be between 200 to 400, were 7. Anything below 150 requires immediate medical attention. Anything below 30 is considered critically life-threatening. My D-dimer, which should be around about 200, was 56,000. Doctors were baffled. They didn't know what was causing it. And all I said was, I have not been right since my vaccine. Their immediate response was, well, we've not had any problems so far. And I responded with, there will always be the first one. A week after that, my wife was called into hospital. And they told me my wife was called into hospital. Knew that there was their way of telling me they thought I was going to die. Because here in the UK, all the hospitals were closed to visitors. It was no visitors at all, unless it was for end of life. So that day I woke up with my wife at the end of my bed, and I remember seeing her. I can't remember my conversations with her. Ironically, that day when my wife was called into hospital was the day that they was going to remove the whole of my bowel, which obviously is a large part of your intestine. Which would have meant I would have had to have a bag on the front of me in order to be able to go to the toilet. But they told me that they were cancelling the operation because I would never survive the operation. I remember that day telling my wife to go. And that was purely because if I was going to die, I didn't want her to see me die. I then remained in hospital. I pulled through, obviously, as I'm still here today to tell this story to you. I then remained in hospital in total for 34 days. And probably just after I'd been in hospital for 3 weeks was when they discovered what is now known as vaccine-induced thrombocytopenia, also known as VIT, which is a new condition brought on by the AstraZeneca vaccine and also the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which are both adenoviral vector-based vaccines, which are different to the mRNA vaccines like Pfizer and so forth, which is now being more commonly used. My life now, as you can hear, I'm talking to you now. I've been talking for several minutes, and I'm now getting completely out of breath. I'm struggling even when I'm sat down having a conversation with you. My life before that, I could run a marathon in under 4 hours. I was very fit, very healthy. I didn't smoke. I drank very little alcohol because of my job. You couldn't drink alcohol the night before you're working. So I was extremely fit and extremely healthy, and my life is now nothing like it used to be.
Well, Eddie, relax. Thank you for your time, for sharing. Just tell us, you finally confirmed as a vaccine injured and you get some compensation.
Yeah, I mean, strictly speaking here, the government will tell you it's not a form of compensation because they say you can take legal action against them, but that is incredibly difficult and very, very expensive. And for a majority of people trying to find a solicitor willing to take on their case is almost impossible. I am part of a group that is a class action here in the UK, but obviously due to it ongoing, I can't speak too much about that. But yes, I was awarded what's called the Vaccine Damage Payment Scheme here in the UK, which is a scheme which has been around since 1979. So it is now 46 years old. It was originally designed as a temporary scheme, and it hasn't changed hardly other than the amount in 46 years. In order to qualify for that, you have to be 60% disabled and prove that your injuries were caused by the vaccine. When I initially applied for mine I think it was June 2021, I was told my claim would take 6 months, which should have meant I would have got an outcome, either a yes or a no on my payment by January 2022. I was eventually paid the Vaccine Damage Payment Scheme in April 2023, nearly 2 years later. I'd lost my job, I'd lost my business, and we was very close to losing our home. If we hadn't had savings to live off, we would have lost our home. There are other people here in the UK who have lost their jobs, their marriages have broken down, they've lost their homes, everything they have ever worked and saved for, they have lost. The most important thing out of all the things that we lose is our health. And I would give anything to have my health back tomorrow.
Eddie, thank you for your time and for helping us to raising awareness about these tragic situations that you are facing. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. It's very much appreciated. Take care. Have a good day.
You too. Can you tell us who is our next guest?
Yeah, I mean, with AD, like he said, that nothing can pay for the loss of his health. He would rather have his health back than any other form of compensation. And but on what AD was saying, our UK government set aside 1.7 billion to pay for the damage from the vaccine, death and injury from the COVID vaccine without telling anyone. So they've prepared for this death and injury, but they didn't say a word to us.
You say 1.7 billion pounds.
The government set aside in 2020 £1 billion to pay specifically for COVID vaccine injury and bereavement, whilst telling everybody across the world that it was safe and effective. The government knew, they lied, and people died. And unfortunately, there's many that can't speak now. So the next person we're speaking to is Nikki Black. She is one of the cases that she believes that she's not so badly injured as other people. And to get the one-off payment from the government, you have to be at least 60% disabled or dead to get that money. So if you are 59% disabled, your application for the compensation, which isn't compensation, will be refused. So the next person you're speaking to is Nikki Black, and she is injured from Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, the same as AD Walker.
Hello, Nikki. Welcome to our show in Croatia.
Hello. Hi. How are you?
Great. It's nice to see you, and thank you for your time. Please, can you share with our audience your experience during the pandemic and, of course, what you were facing after you take a jab?
So during the pandemic, I was a teacher, and there was a lot of pressure on the teachers to have the vaccine because we had lots of children in the class. And at the time, I thought it was my duty to take the vaccine to protect the children. I wasn't really aware of all the people that were opposing, that were on the street. It was kept very much out of the media in London. And so I went to the vaccine centre and took the vaccine. And within 24 hours, I was having adverse reactions.
What kind of adverse reaction you had?
So 24 hours afterwards, I started to have severe headaches and my hands were burning. And at first, I just thought that it was just the vaccine working, because we were told that we may feel a little bit not ourselves. Within a few days, the headaches didn't go. And then I started to call doctors, and the doctors were all closed and they weren't wanting to see the patients. So I ended up at the hospital 2 weeks later. The hospital turned me away, said there was nothing wrong with me. And this went on for 3 or 4 months where the doctors and the hospitals were just completely gaslighting me and sending me away. And it wasn't until I started to fall over that then they started to take notice and then send me for further tests. And after 4.5 months of severe pain and not sleeping and just feeling absolutely dreadful, plus falling over, having no balance, I then was admitted to hospital to do various tests, lumbar puncture, MRI, and electric tests on my nerves. And all three were lined up to say that initially I had the diagnosis of Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Mm-hmm. And when are they confirmed that it's from vaccines?
I had to fight for that. Every time I went to the doctors or the hospital, I explicitly knew it was my vaccine. I'm never poorly, never been ill, never had any underlying health conditions, on no medication. So I knew something completely different. And the fact that it was straight away afterwards. So I wasn't a person that was clueless, that didn't join the dots. And therefore, I think if I didn't know, they would have tried to not give me the recognition. But because I said it right from the beginning, they had to put it on my notes in the end because I wouldn't leave without them doing it.
Have you received any kind of compensation for your condition?
No, because in the UK, you have to be 60% disabled. And however much I've spent all of my savings, my life savings, basically trying to get better, they're not interested. They're not interested at all.
Well, what you're thinking when you go to get these vaccines? You heard our propaganda around and everybody was telling you. Did you have any doubts about safe and effectiveness, or you just trusted your government?
I trusted them, sadly, never again. I didn't have, because I was within the teaching profession, everybody is highly educated. I wouldn't say highly intelligent. I would say highly educated. And therefore, we just did what we were told. People didn't question because you just think that science comes through the government and therefore the government would be telling the truth to protect the people. I now know otherwise and feel very, very naive that I did trust and I would never trust again.
Just one more question. If you have a chance now to say something to Boris Johnson, who was Prime Minister at that time, what would you tell him?
How do I say this without being awful? I'm not going to swear live on TV, but he is a dirtbag. There's no words. There's no words to explain what an evil, nasty man that man is. And whoever was pulling his strings, I just don't know how he could do what he has done to the British public, along with the others within Parliament. They're not human.
Maybe one day we'll have a chance to ask him that. Thank you, Nikki, for your time. Thank you for sharing your experience and helping us to raise awareness about people who are vaccine injured.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, Fiona, Nikki at least has a chance to continue with her life, and that's a good news. But we need to press harder to see, because there is a lot of people who can't. Can you tell us who is our next guest?
Yes, you'll be speaking to Christine Wiles, and she lost her husband. Well, her husband was killed by the Pfizer jab. And as Nikki was saying, as Adi was saying, it's very difficult to prove causation, to fight for the one-off payment. It's very, very difficult. The NHS and the government do not want to admit that the vaccine caused the harm or the death of a loved one. So Christine she knows that the Pfizer jab killed her husband. He died suddenly. He was fit and healthy in his 40s. He used to climb mountains. And he was killed by the jab that he believed, again, was safe and effective. So we'll let you speak to Christine Wiles now, whose husband Pete was killed.
Hello, Christine. Welcome to our show in Croatia.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time, and thank you that you will share experience what you had during pandemic and after receiving COVID vaccine. Can you tell us what happened? What was your experience the last 5 years?
Okay, well, my experience, it was my husband actually who took the vaccine, and unfortunately he died within 7 weeks of taking his injection. His name was Pete Wiles. He was 48 years old, and his mother also died within a few weeks. She died within 4 weeks as well. So we had 2 funerals within 2 months.
Both of them received vaccines.
Yes, yeah. Pete's mother, Jean, she received the AstraZeneca vaccine and died within 4 weeks of a large bleed on the brain. And Peter had his Pfizer vaccine, and he died within 7 weeks of aortic dissection and rupture. And I do strongly believe that there may have been a genetic link between mother and son, and they both sadly died within weeks of their injections.
Sorry for your loss. Can you tell us when you came and discussed with authorities that this happened and that vaccines are the reason? What they told you?
Well, I have had lengthy communication with my coroner, who's also been communicating with the pathologist, but they refused to accept that it was anything to do with the vaccine. They did allow me to send lots of research. They did say that they felt sorry for me, but I think it's the time scale. I think the problem is if it was within days, I think it would have been more acceptable. But because it's weeks, 4 weeks or 7 weeks, as in Pete's case, it just seems too long a gap. But I do believe that that's the amount of time that was needed for the mRNA product to do the damage to Pete's heart. So I'm absolutely convinced, but they won't accept it. And I speak really for thousands of people who don't have the product as the cause of death on the death certificate. That's why I speak out, because I'm a voice really for many of us in our group, our bereaved group, the UK CV family in England. There's lots and lots of us who the coroners and the pathologists are absolutely refusing to accept that it had anything to do with it.
Well, they knew from the start, because we now officially knew that Pfizer in their trials had 1,223 deaths in the first 3 months of the trial. That means they knew that could happen, and they cannot say for sure that it's not from vaccine.
No, they can't. And it's supposed to be based on the balance of probabilities, isn't it? But they still sway it in their favour, not in ours.
Please, can you tell us how your life looks like today after you had so much losses?
Oh, well, yes, our family is very much reduced. My poor sister-in-law, she lost her mother and her brother, and my father-in-law lost his wife and his son, and I lost my husband. So I'm now on my own. I work full-time to pay for all my bills. And yeah, my life, it's nearly 4 years now. It'll be 4 years next month on the 11th of July. And yeah, I'm now alone and very sad. So, I've been traumatized with Pete dying suddenly in the middle of the night. He was my best friend, and he was very strong and fit, was Pete. He had a very active job. Years before, he'd been in the building trade, and he'd been the architect and builder of houses. He was very strong, very intelligent. Even though he didn't listen to me when I advised him not to take the vaccine because I believed it had killed his mother. But he went ahead and had it anyway, sadly, because he thought he was doing the right thing. But yeah, my life, I've been very traumatized. I've been grieving heavily for I would say heavily for 3.5 years. I grieved, but I managed to keep my business going. I have a business, and I've managed to keep it running, and I still have that business, thank goodness, because it's my only way of earning a living and surviving.
Congratulations for that. What was your husband thinking when he decided to go to take vaccine?
He didn't. I tried to convince him that it wasn't a traditional vaccine, that it was an mRNA product, and he'd never heard of it before, so he didn't really take me seriously. And I didn't think that lightning would strike twice in the same place, I've got to admit. I thought he'll probably be okay. I knew lots of people who'd had it. I decided not to have it. I knew lots of people who'd had it and were absolutely fine. So when he insisted, because he thought it was the right thing to do, he thought he was, towing the line like everybody else that had taken it. We were under such pressure pressure, and he was under a bit of pressure in his job because he worked with vulnerable people. So he wasn't forced to, but it was suggested. So he just went ahead. He wasn't worried at all. And I don't know if he had any side effects because he never told me, but he wouldn't have done. He would have been embarrassed to have said. And I think even on the day when he died, he wasn't feeling very well. And he didn't let on that he was worried in the slightest. But I don't think he knew. I don't think he knew that he was at risk of dying. I'm absolutely sure he didn't know. But I do believe that what happened was he had a lot of atherosclerosis in his blood vessels, and as we know, the product causes inflammation in all of your blood vessels, including his mother's blood vessels in her brain, which cause the bleed. So the inflammation causes the product causes the inflammation, and that creates the atherosclerosis, which then brings about the sudden violent death. So, but he didn't know it was coming, and neither did I, because I wasn't worried. He just wasn't very well, and I went to bed. And in the middle of the night, he got up and went downstairs. But I heard an almighty crash at 1 o'clock in the morning, and waking me up, I had a very strong feeling that something really wasn't right. And when I went down into the kitchen, unfortunately, the light was on, and Peter was just lying on the floor, dead. Completely dead. He died instantly. He died standing up, and he was dead before he hit the ground, sadly.
Obviously, he trusted his government. What can be your message to government and to health authorities in your country?
Oh, just the fact that people did trust them. Nobody thought that they meant any harm, or that any harm would come. They absolutely trusted vaccines, absolutely trusted the authorities, believed it was safe and effective. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken it. But of course, yeah, he did. And so many, I know almost everybody I know has taken it. So everybody believed it, yes, sadly.
It will be very hard to regain trust in our government, especially in health authorities, in case of some kind of future emergency situation of international concerns.
Yes, yeah, I wouldn't trust again. Oh, do you mind if I just show you a quick photograph of Pete?
Yes, that would be nice.
Let me get it on the up that way.
In the middle, spot yes.
That's me and Pete. So he was a big, strong man. Only 48, and no comorbidities or anything like that. And he was very strong and muscular. So no, I would never trust again now, not after this, no.
Let him rest in peace. Thank you, Christine, for your time.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you very much for having me on your show. And hello, everybody in Croatia. So, yeah, I had an adverse reaction to AstraZeneca. My injuries were the vaccine-induced thrombosis and thrombocytopenia. So I had huge blood clots all within my arterial system going down into my legs, my arms, my kidneys, my bowel and various other places. I presented in A&E feeling very unwell, and nobody seemed to know what was happening. But fortunately, somebody did put me in a scanner and discovered these huge blood clots all over my body. I was transferred to an appropriate hospital and operated on fairly quickly. Because when I was being admitted there, I actually could see my left foot dropping. The pain was appalling. And then my right foot started to join in. And they just swiftly took me to theatre. And I knew that I was in a lot of trouble because I've spent 42 years of my life working in an operating theatre. I've been very fit and active up to this point. I'd retired, but I did plan on going back to work to help out with the COVID crisis instead of continuing this career that I really wanted to pursue, which was working in alternative therapies. I've been left after that experience with peripheral arterial disease, fibromyalgia, tinnitus, which is most annoying. I get cramp in my leg, intermittent claudication. I've got a blood clot that runs from the back of my knee on my right leg down to my ankle in my popliteal artery. I've got a skin graft on my left leg, which they couldn't close. So I've got a one thickness skin laid over muscle, directly over muscle. In the winter, it feels like I've got a block of ice inserted in there. I've got a scar that runs parallel to it on the other side. This was the result of having to lay my legs open, put a knife in and cut down to relieve the pressure because I was in danger of losing my feet. I spent 6 days in the ITU. And at one point, they did think they were going to have to amputate one leg, then both legs, and then they warned my parents and my family that would probably lose my life. But somebody gave me the protocol for a very similar adverse reaction to a drug called heparin. They gave me the same medication that they would have given had it been heparin that I'd had. But of course, I had not had heparin. And it worked. It started to reverse the process. They were treating the cause and not just managing the symptoms, which is why I'm alive today. I'm very grateful to those people, but not all my experience was good. My vascular consultant was not convinced or decided it couldn't possibly be the vaccine, was trying to insinuate it was my lifestyle, which I had quite a decent lifestyle. I walked a lot, up to 5 miles a day during lockdown. Always fit, always active, worked long shifts prior to that. So there I was in hospital. I'd been in about 16 days and he decided to discharge me. I didn't feel well. I'd had a skin graft 2 days before. I'd had serious surgery just on the day I arrived. I'd spent 6 days in ITU on a ventilator. I'd spent a couple more days in the critical care unit. I could barely walk. I couldn't dress myself. I had to have assistance eating, drinking. I couldn't prepare food, but he wanted to discharge me because there was COVID within the hospital, just like there was everywhere else. I returned within hours. It was April the 1st he discharged me, and that's April Fool's Day. Well, he was the fool because I had to go back. It actually happened to be Good Friday, so nothing much happens over the Friday, Saturday, Sunday or the Monday because it was bank holidays here in England. So really I was discharged home with no follow-up care, no immediate follow-up care. The plans would not be made till the Tuesday because that's how the system works. I believe he sent me home to die, but I can't prove it. He didn't look very pleased when I returned. The haematologists were most surprised on the Tuesday when they came to see me. They didn't expect me to be discharged. And they pointed out that I'd been discharged on the wrong medication anyway. I should have gone home on warfarin, and they gave me another blood thinner that was inappropriate. So the whole discharge was inappropriate. I spent a further 18 days, which verifies it was an inappropriate discharge, where this consultant would not entertain the idea it was the vaccine. In fact, he made a very clear point of telling me I needed another vaccine and I should perhaps have Pfizer because Pfizer was safe. And it's like you're living in a nightmare. You're isolated. There's people that are good to you, and then you've got these people that are absolutely terrifying because you know that they're not really looking after your best interests. I got home. I was met with like a lot of sympathy and a lot of empathy from friends and family. But the wider audience really didn't believe that I'd been damaged by a vaccine. They thought it was something else that nobody had ever heard of. That if it was the vaccine, it was okay because it saved everybody else. So I had to go under a bus. They could throw me under a bus. I could die because it was saving them. It saved others, which we now know is not true. The thing that upsets me greatly is the fact that they did treat the cause, and that wasn't acknowledged or made public for quite some time after, and far too many people continued to get the AstraZeneca and die as a direct result of having it. I felt very suppressed. I had medical people that told me that I couldn't possibly be injured by vaccine. And despite me saying, I'm the science, look at me, you definitely can, they wouldn't entertain it. I was meant to feel I was lying. I was meant to feel that I was being dramatic. I was seeking attention. I was meant to feel lots of things that I should not be made to feel. I felt very much like there was a lot of victim blaming. There must have been something wrong with me to have that reaction. Anyway, I ended up at the Truth Be Told rally quite spontaneously, which was organised by Fiona Rose. And there I met people that seemed to show me a great deal of care. I was overwhelmed. I waved my little sign saying I'm vaccine injured. People talked to me, they were kind to me. Anyway, I ended up at the Truth Be Told rally quite spontaneously, which was organised by Fiona Rose. And there I met people that seemed to show me a great deal of care. I was overwhelmed. I waved my little sign saying I'm vaccine injured. People talked to me, they were kind to me. They understood. I'd not come across this before. I listened to the people on the stage. I was astounded because I could relate to so much that they said, and I hadn't found anybody that spoke up like that. So yeah, it's been a pretty dreadful experience all along. I got my vaccine damage payment scheme. There was money set aside for 14,000 plus people to get that, but it's less than 200, and people are dying and people are living really dreadful lives because they're not getting what's due to them. They're not being acknowledged. And just because I got mine doesn't mean to say that I'm okay. I'm not okay about the fact that people didn't get what they deserve. So basically, the truth needs to be told about what has been happening, because we won't be silenced. We will speak out for them that can't speak out. And we hope that others join us, because these things do need talking about. Too much silence. Silence corrupts. Silence kills. So thank you, Andrea, and thank you everybody in Croatia for listening to me and for allowing me to get my story out.
Fiona, these witnesses exactly experience what we heard today. This is something that what we are hearing all around the world, millions of people. There is some people who estimated that more than 27 million people died from the COVID vaccines. There is some studies showing that. I had the interview with people who made these studies. At the same time, we're hearing, of course, there is some kind of fake studies, even from the very famous journalists like Lancet, who said they saved more than 20 million lives. What do you think about this kind of science, exactly this kind of health authorities who are saying that and paying that?
Well, first of all, the estimations that were made, I think Dennis Rancourt and Edward Dowd have both made estimations that I would absolutely trust. It is widely acknowledged by VEARS, by the MHRA, which is the reporting scheme here in the UK, that only 2 to 10% of the actual real figures are ever reported. So in the UK, we've had nearly 500,000 people who have reported an adverse event, which could be death. Over 300,000 of those who are considered serious, and 3,000, allegedly 3,000 of those 500,000 reports are death. Now, if that was actually, say, 2% of the true figure, we would actually look at 24 million people being adversely affected by these jabs just in the UK alone. 24 million injuries and deaths collectively. And that's true across the world, because most GPs and doctors, even MPs, health ministers in our own country don't even know that the reporting system even exists. And on the fact that our government set aside £1.7 billion to pay for death and injury from these jabs in secret, whilst telling people they were 100% safe and effective, is murder. It's a crime against humanity. The government have paid out from taxpayers' money over 24 million to just over 200 people. They have rejected 10,000 claims to date, and they only have enough to pay around about 14,000 people who make an application. They simply cannot afford to pay for all the damages done. But we, the people, we're paying, not the government, not Big Pharma, not Pfizer, not Moderna, not AstraZeneca. They're not paying because our government indemnified them and protected them from it. So, I mean, they told everybody it was safe and effective. They orchestrated from 2020 a colossal lie, fear-mongering, fear porn every day at 5 p.m. on the news, telling us about all the cases. I never tested, Andrea, never once. I was out every day. I was walking and marching and protesting with hundreds of thousands of people, over 1 million people at one point in the height of the pandemic. They were lying to people to coerce them into taking this toxic injectable. And if people want to know the truth, I would listen to Dr. Mike Yeadon. He's the ex-VP of Pfizer. Dr. Mike Yeadon is one of the most brilliant scientists. He's the most qualified to talk about the toxicity of these injectables. And it is a crime scene. So I don't need any more doctors and scientists to do any more papers and studies. We know the science. They lied about it. This was intentional, not experimental. They lied, people died, and we need to hold them to account. And I'm very passionate about it. So I'm sure you can tell.
Well, just for our audience, Mike Yeadon was my guest also. And there is 2 episodes in my channel. And also he was guest in our parliament. He's a friend of mine, and he went to our parliament where he explained everything, and that was in the 1st December of 2023. That means 1.5 years ago. Whoever wants to see can see on the channel of our Croatian parliament. I also heard there is a numbers from United States that totally from COVID vaccines died people more than First and Second World War and the Vietnam War combined in United States. And now things have changed there because they have a new HHS Secretary, Kennedy, who is now just fired 17 members of advisory board of CDC for vaccines. And new 8 come just, and 3 of them are new personally. But if they continue to say same thing like they did before, I think things will change. Maybe this way will come also in Great Britain.
Maybe. To be honest with you, I've been watching America closely, and I think that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has the ability to stop these mRNA injections right now. He's not done that. It remains on the childhood schedule. It remains being injected into vulnerable babies from 6 months old. And the same thing is happening in this country. So I'm not that faithful anymore in Kennedy. Stop them now. The mRNA jabs do not need managing by policy. They do not need to be tested and experimented. They've known for years. Every single ingredient in these injectables has been chosen with the intention to injure, kill, and reduce fertility. And it's sinister. It's toxic by design, and it's a crime against humanity. And enough is enough of tiptoeing around and doing more tests. But I hope he proves everyone that supported him right. The UK is in very, very dark times at the moment. They're distracting us with all these problems. But myself and the injured and bereaved, with Truth Be Told, will keep fighting for accountability, truth and justice. And we won't shut up. We will not be silenced.
For sure. Tell me also, there was an award from Sign of your Queen for chief of AstraZeneca for his role in this pandemic. How you comment this?
The king, yeah. So we've got a king now, not a queen. And it's always quite interesting because obviously I've been through court quite a lot, and it's always the crown, the queen versus Fiona Rose Diamond, or the king versus Fiona Rose Diamond. And I've never been able to question my accuser. I think that's all, it's insane. Given that what we know about AstraZeneca being withdrawn from the market, the adverse events have been acknowledged more than any of the other jabs because they can't not acknowledge it. And the fact that people are being given awards for, these people are criminals. These people deserve to be in jail. We should be bringing back capital punishment just for these people. And I don't hold any royal award in any regard whatsoever, because the king is only the king for as long as people believe he is the king. And I will make it my mission to make sure people understand that he's not our king. He's not the people's king, and the people have more power than the people in power.
And for the end, please, Fiona, for people who are listening this, who are vaccine injured and are in the same situation like your guest, that nobody wants to listen to their problems, what is your message to them?
Never, ever, ever give up. And in your area, try to find people like you. Social media, yourself, Andrea, if people are in Croatia, I'm sure they can reach out to you and tell their story. People are more than welcome as well to reach out to me. My website is covileaks.co.uk, covileaks.co.uk. Do get in contact with me and we will tell your story. Never, ever give up. And also know that you're not alone. There's millions of people who are injured and bereaved, and we stand together. We will fight together. I'm unjabbed myself. I never took the vaccine, but I stand with you, and I'm sure people of Croatia will stand with you. And to people who are not vaccinated, stand with the people who are injured and bereaved, because we are humanity, and it is humanity against tyranny. We need to be united and not lose our humanity, because we need to fight against the people who are pulling the strings and the people that did this to you. But just use your voice. You have a voice, use it.
Thank you, Fiona. Keep fighting, and we'll be in contact.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrea. And to the people of Croatia, thank you.
Evo, dragi narode, imali ste prilike vidjeti stvarne ljude koji su stradali od cjepiva. Znam da ih ima u Hrvatskoj zato što se meni direktno obraćaju, a na moje pitanje zašto se obraćate meni, kažu jednostavno ne vjerujemo našim autoritetima, nažalost i doktorima. Zašto ne vjeruju? Pa zato što jednostavno niko od njih ne prihvaća da su stradali od cjepiva. Naime, to je nešto što se prvo izuzima. Što god da se dogodi, sigurno nije od cjepiva. Međutim, iskustvo nam govori sasvim drugačije i ovom priliku ću iskoristiti da vam kažem kako mnogi ljudi danas iznenada umiru. Mnogi od karcinoma koji se razviju u kratkom roku, mnogi od srčanih udara, moždanih udara, plućnih embolija i sličnih novih iznenadnih bolesti i smrti koji do sada nismo iskusili u takvom broju, niti kod tako mladih i zdravih ljudi. Zašto vam ovo govorim? Zato što nitko do sada neće u javnosti spomenuti nešto što se ponavljalo 2021. Koji je tvoj cijepni status? Nismo nigdje mogli ući bez COVID potvrde, a na COVID potvrde je stajalo jesmo li cijepljeni ili ne. Danas, 3 godine poslije, kada iznenada mnogi ljudi umiru, niko ne pita koji je cijepni status. Znam što vam govorim i sugeriram vam. Stalo vam je do vaših najbližih koji su stradali prijatelja. Pa postavite si to jedno tako pitanje. Pogotovo ako ste primili 3 ili više doza tog cjepiva. Jer možda odgovor na to pitanje će ležati u odgovoru što će sa vama biti u budućnosti. Nije ovo nešto neozbiljno o čemu govorim, jer je obilje podataka i dokaza koje ste mogli vidjeti u mojim emisijama, na mom profilu, a i šire, koji govore u prilog ovome što vam ja govorim. Nije li vrijeme da doznamo konačno da li je to nešto što nas je spašavalo od smrti imalo snažan utjecaj na naše zdravlje u budućnosti? To je pitanje koje si moramo postaviti zbog naše djece, a najviše zbog povjerenja u znanost i u struku, pogotovo u naše autoritete. Što ako se sutra uistinu dogodi opet neka nova izvanredna situacija? Da li će ova razina nepovjerenja kojom svjedočimo pomoći ili odmoći u toj situaciji? Odgovor sigurno znate. Stoga i ova emisija služi da se podigne razina svijesti kako bi ljudi počeli konačno o zabranjenoj temi razgovarati zbog naše budućnosti. Nadam se da vam se svidjela ova emisija. Hvala lijepo na pažnji i uskoro se vidimo u sljedećoj epizodi Slobodni.
Nitko vas neće natjerati da se poklonite zvijeri, učinit ćete to svojevoljno, odbacujući vjeru. Bićete laka meta za zvijeri, jer se niste podredili vjeri. Ako se ne podredite vjeri, podredit ćete se zvijeri. Toliko ćete se suobličiti sa ovim svijetom, da nećete ni prepoznati da ste u zabludi. Biće to najveća demonska prevara ikada i pravedno zaslužena osuda nad nepokajanim grešnicima.
Gdje su svi?